All right, today we're going to be talking about solving percent problems using equations. Specifically, we're going to talk about two different ways on how to actually solve a percent problem. So these two ways are using proportions and using equations. Up to this point, we've talked about using proportions a little bit, especially setting up the and cross multiplying to solve for the unknown or the x, depending on where that may be in the proportion. For this particular video, we're going to talk about how to include equations with that same idea. So, by doing this, we're going to use this first example. We have find 13% of 126. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what this means. We know a couple different things. We know the percent, and we know a number. Now we need to determine whether that number, 126, is our part or our whole. In this case, it's our whole. It is our whole. So we're going to need to set up an equation. And this equation basically means that we can do our part equals the percent times the whole. All right, and with this idea, we can actually solve some things. So we don't know our part, so I'm just going to call that lowercase p. I know my percent, and I'm going to convert my percent to a decimal. So in this case, it would be 0.13, or 13 hundredths. Multiply that by 126. All right, and once you solve those, you will get p, or the part, is equal to 16.38. All right, so this is an example of how to use it using an equation. All right, so this is an equation example. Okay, all right, so this next one, what is 28% of 17? In this particular case, I'm going to use the proportion idea. Okay, so instead of using an equation, I'm going to talk about it using a proportion. So I know I have 28%, and all percents are over 100. And I need to figure out, is that 17 my part or my whole? Well, in this case, it's my whole, so it's going to go on bottom. My unknown or my part is going to go on top. From here, I can cross multiply, so I can do 28 times 17 equals 100x. And 28 times 17 equals 476. Divide both sides by 100. And x is going to equal 4.76. All right, so those are the two different ways you can solve it. There is not a way I'm going to require you to do it in class. It's whatever is easiest for you, okay? Whether you want to use an equation or a proportion. All right, otherwise, what I'd like you to do is do this particular problem at home in your WISC. So it states 60 is 48% of what number? So remember to think about what your part is, what your whole is, and what percent you have. Okay? All right, and the last example I have for you today is actually a word problem. Word problems are very common when we're talking about percentages. So here's what we got. We have, suppose 42 of 60 people read the newspaper every day. What percent of 60 is 42? All right, so I'm going to show you how to do it in two different ways. I'm going to show you how to do it the equation way and the proportion way. All right, so the equation way first. We know that a part equals a percent times a whole. So what I have to do is I actually have to plug some things in. So what's my part? Well, in this case, it's 42. I don't know what my percent is, so I'm going to say x times, what's my whole? 60. In order to get x by itself, I have to divide 60 to both sides. And 42 divided by 60 is equal to 0.7. Now to turn that into a percent, we swoop twice and we get 70%. All right, so that's how you do it the equation way. Now the proportion way, we can say, well, we know we're trying to find a percent, so we have x over 100 equals 42, which is my part, over my whole, which is 60, cross multiply, so I have 60x equals 42 times 100, which is 4,200. Divide both sides by 60. And x is going to equal 70. And in this case, we know that that x represents the percent, so it would be 70%. Okay? So our answers are exactly the same, which should show you that you can do this problem in two different ways. It's whatever you feel most comfortable with. All right? So make sure you do that one problem for me for your whisk tonight, and otherwise I will see you tomorrow. Come in with any questions or concerns. Thanks, guys.